Hi there, it's Angela, and you're listening to the third episode of our 6-week Power Through series for spring. The encouragement I want to offer you today centers on how to power through with resilience. One of the most stressful parts of this school year has been the uncertainty and constant changes. Nearly every teacher I know has invested countless hours into setting up a system for one approach to learning, only to find out that everything's going to be completely different the following day. And then it's all going to change again 2 weeks after that. Resilient pedagogy, as defined by Joshua Eyler, is a combination of course design principles and teaching strategies that are as resistant to disruption and to change in the learning environment as possible. The idea is that the essential qualities of your lesson plans will be in place no matter what changes in the way you deliver instruction. And a resilient approach to teaching requires us to simplify and scale down. You're not going to be able to offer kids all the resources and options you wish you could this year. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Everything in our world is a little bit limited and restricted to an extent, right? If you go to a restaurant, for example, there are probably limitations as to where you can sit, or maybe fewer choices on the menu. It's the same thing for your instruction. The menu of options is different and simplified. Since we were trying to cram in way too much in our pre-pandemic instruction, resilient pedagogy returns us to what is essential and most important. So as you think about supporting your students during these final weeks of the school year, ask yourself, what would this look like if it were easy? And then pick simple, flexible options that are going to reduce stress for you, your students, and their families. For example, using the same flow each day and each week can simplify things tremendously. So you're starting and ending class the same way, and there's consistency. Every Monday we do this. Every Tuesday we follow this structure. Keep consistent due dates and collect assignments weekly rather than daily when possible. Online assignment organizers can help students and families see at a glance what your flow is like. You can click the link in the show notes to get more specific tips about this, as well as example resources and templates to help you use flexible resilience as a guiding force in your planning. But here's the really important thing to remember. You may be under immense pressure to hold to pre-pandemic expectations and learning standards. Your students may be taking standardized tests this year, and you may feel that's not only unnecessary, but it's going to produce an inaccurate picture of their learning. I share that frustration with you, and I agree wholeheartedly. My advice is to do what is necessary to power through this, but don't devote a ton of time, energy, or attention to that stuff. Check the boxes, dot the I's, cross the T's, but keep your gaze steadily focused on what matters most for your students. No one gives 100% to everything they do. So stop pressuring yourself to uphold that 100% effort in everything. It's not possible. Figure out what's worth the investment and pour your heart and soul into that. And then give 75% or 50% or 25% to some of those other things. Think about what you're doing that is really moving the needle for kids and how you can get a return on your investment of time with future classes. What things have you done this school year that were really effective and that can probably be used next year? That's where you want to devote the majority of your time and energy. Obviously, next school year is still a question mark for many of us too, but that's where a resilient pedagogical approach really shines. Invest your time and energy in lessons and activities that are context independent, things that can work no matter what the teaching format's like in the future. The stuff that's just useful for now, or that isn't really doing much for kids, simplify it. Scale it down. Cut it out altogether if possible. Flexible resilience seems like a necessary survival tool for the foreseeable future. So let's lean into that instead of resisting it. Because this is not a lost year of learning, as so many folks outside the profession like to call it. Sure, many kids will have adverse effects on their mastery of content due to the pandemic. That's true. But just because it's true doesn't mean it's healthy or useful to dwell on that fact. You don't have to choose that framing or think and talk constantly about how far behind kids are going to be. Because it's also probably true that some of your students are actually doing better now than they would be in a traditional classroom during a typical school year. And some of your kids may be struggling academically or socio-emotionally, but not necessarily both. And some are experiencing some truly wonderful benefits right now, too. Many of your students are learning to develop critical thinking and tech proficiency, self-advocacy, time management, socio-emotional regulation, and other important life skills in ways that far surpass their abilities in those areas earlier in the school year. Those skills are the ones that are going to help them get back on track with any content area loss. That's probably also true, right? And it's certainly true that you will not be the only teacher grappling with this problem next year. The whole country and many other countries around the world are going to be dealing with how to keep moving kids forward after the disruptions that we've experienced. So this is not your problem alone to solve. It's a bridge that all of us are going to have to cross when we get there. Can you see how this is a better feeling perspective than half my class is failing and they're never going to catch up? You can choose these better feeling thoughts and actively look for evidence of them throughout the day. You can train yourself to focus on assets instead of deficits. Or, as Dr. Byron McClure puts it, focus on what's strong instead of what's wrong. Be flexible, be resilient, and support your students in doing the same. Next Wednesday, we'll talk about reframing problems in a healthier, more constructive way. But for now, I want you to remember to center resilience in your daily work. That's the third element of continuing in a strong and determined way until the end, even when it's difficult. Resilience is key to powering through.